Welcome to another episode of Interfaith Dialogue. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I have Sahara Zadi joining me. Sahara works for the Canadian Council of Muslim Women as a project coordinator. Sahara, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and about the organization?
Sure. My name is Sahara Zadi, and I'm here representing the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, known as CCMW, as a project coordinator for the national organization and president of the Toronto chapter. The Canadian Council of Muslim Women is a national not-for-profit organization whose mission is to ensure the equity, equality, and empowerment of Canadian Muslim women. They've been working for over 30 years. It was founded in 1982 to help ensure the economic and social justice issues that Canadian Muslim women face. And they do this through projects, advocacy, research, and civic engagement.
Okay, thank you. So just got a couple questions for you. Is violence against women more common in Muslim communities than non-Muslim communities?
No, it isn't. Violence against women takes place in every culture, every country, every community, regardless of your race, your color, your ethnicity, or the religion you belong to. There are different types of violence that take place against women. There is obviously physical, but then you have emotional, you have verbal, financial, psychological, and sexual. It can take place at home, at the work, or in communities. And usually perpetrators can be, your intimate partners, it can be your parents, it can be your in-laws, community members, children, colleagues, even the government. Violence against women has had a very long and sordid history, and it's very sad to see sexual abuse, assaults, and discrimination taking place in Canada today.
Great. What are some stereotypes held against Muslim women that need to be challenged?
Well, a lot of people believe that the Muslim community encourages oppression of women. The first stereotype that they do face is that a lot of the abuse that is carried out is usually by their family members. It could be not only your husbands, but it could be your fathers and your brothers. And so therefore, a lot of people do believe that, overall, this is the kind of culture that Muslim families, are involved themselves with. However, that is not the case. And the second problem is that a lot of people believe in the religious book, the Quran. God himself advocates the ill treatment of women, which again is not the case, because the truth is when you interpret the Quran, it actually advocates for women's rights. So, for example, inheritance, maintaining your maiden name to keep your identity, earning a living. And another stereotype is to understand that practices such as honor killings and FGCM and forced marriages are actually more cultural practices rather than religious practices.
So what other forms of violence besides physical assault are Muslim women exposed to?
There are 4 types of violence that Muslim women are exposed to. CCMW commissioned 4 reports entitled Violence Against Women, Health and Justice for Canadian Muslim Women. It was funded by the Status of Women of Canada. We had Asma Baralas, who wrote the foreword. She's a professor of politics and director of the Center for the Study of Culture, Race, Ethnicity at Ithaca College in New York. And the study was researched and written by Pamela Cross, who is a feminist lawyer who works in the VAW sector, and VAW is violence against women. So other violence that Muslim women are exposed to, one is femicide, which is the killing of women and girls within the family in Muslim communities. The reason CCMW does not like using the word honor killings is because when it is an excuse that is used by the perpetrator that I do this in the name of honor, and we don't feel like we need to justify why a person does what he does. And honor killings is basically any violence that is, given out towards women and girls, and therefore we call it femicide. Another form of violence is violence in the family itself. So, you experience violence in your family through domestic violence, wife assault, intimate partner violence, and wife beating and battering. A lot of people believe that it is an interpretation in the Quran when it is not. A lot of the interpretations have been mixed with cultural tribal practices. A lot of the interpreters over the years have been men who are scholars and interpreted the verses based on the culture that they were living in, and therefore there's a lot of discrimination against the interpretation of the verses when it comes to regarding women's issues. A third form of violence is actually FGCM, which is called female genital mutilation, and a lot of data in Canada does not exist on female cutting and mutilation. However, there are a lot of women from countries where this practice is held, and they come to Canada and they actually have, especially during when they're giving birth, they have to access healthcare. They go to healthcare providers, they go to doctors because of situations related to FGCM. And the fourth is forced marriages. And I just want to say here that forced marriages is very different from arranged marriages. Arranged marriages is a cultural practice where there is consent and a choice is given to both parties to either refuse or accept the proposal that is there in front of them. Forced marriages where there is no consent given and usually pressure is put either through emotional coercion or through violent acts.
Thank you. That being said, does the Quran advocate violence against women?
No, it does not, and a lot of people who do say that it does usually cite verse 34 from chapter 4, where it talks about how a man's treatment towards a woman, and usually in the form of his wife. I won't read out the verse here because it's a long verse, but I would encourage people to read CCMW's publication, which is available online on www.ccmw.com, and read Asma Barlas's foreword on the topic. She explains the difference in the interpretation of certain words. So instead, a lot of people take a certain word and interpret it as beating when actually it means to separate, which would be a much more, a better version of taking care of an issue between a man and a woman when a relationship has ceased to exist.
What can the non-Muslim community do to show their support for violence against Muslim women?
One of the things they can do is to cease to use the word honor killings. Honor killings indicate that violence against women only happens within a certain community, within certain religions. This distances any prevention acts in Muslim communities because non-Muslim communities see it as us and them. Another issue would be to understand that honor killings, FGCM, and femicide and forced marriages are actually cultural practices and not part of the religion of Islam. A lot of communities that are from similar regions or have similar cultural backgrounds use the same practice, and they aren't Muslims themselves. Another one would be for service providers to understand that they need to be more culturally aware for women who are trying to escape from these situations and understand where they come from. When it comes to FGCM, we would like to see more research and more data available in Canada so we're able to help out women or children who may be at risk. And for forced marriages, we would like, the federal government, we would like more to generate a response. We would like more, because currently there isn't a law that pertains to forced marriages particularly, and we would like to see, people who are engaged with women women who are young, women and girls in universities and schools, let's say education professionals, to be able to learn more about forced marriages to help prevent them.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, if anyone would be interested in joining the Toronto chapter, they can email me at toronto@ccmw.com. In addition, we have our annual fundraiser where we raise money for Canadian Muslim women who would like to further their education, and this will take place on September 28th at North York Novotel, Toronto. It starts at 11 a.m. and they can email me at the same address to learn more about it.
Great. Thank you for joining us today, Sahar. So that has been another episode of Interfaith Dialogue. I'm your host, Nicole. See you next time.